superstar. He is an absolute superstar, Tom Mitchell. Cripps at the back. Cripps is too good. Neil, yes! Oh, how good was that?
G'day everyone, thanks for tuning into the Ball Magnets podcast. Got a special guest, Lukey Power, also known as Pinger. He's a great man. I'm just going to reel off a few things, Pinger. I don't want to embarrass you, but 3-time Premiership player, an All-Australian. You're you're the first captain at GWS.
Yeah, co-captain.
Co-captain at GWS. You were the AFL Academy, High Performance Academy manager for a couple of years there.
3 years.
And also won the 2021 Assistant Coaches Award for the AFL coaches. So, mate, it's a pretty good resume there. We'll unpack a fair bit, but firstly, thanks for coming on. Your time in the game, 3-time Premiership player, sort of the pinnacle we're all striving to sort of get to. How was sort of that experience as a player?
Yeah, unbelievable. It's certainly something that you don't go into your career, expecting to achieve. You have the dream and the hope and you want to achieve it. As you know, it's from your experience, achieving something as part of a team is so special. And I'm sure with the individual success that you've had so far, and I know this for a fact, that there's still this burning desire, to achieve team success, and that's because you have the ability and the right to be able to share it, with guys that you've worked really hard, you've formed a really strong connection with, and you've all pushed in the same direction. You've overcome challenges to do that. I mean, we had a lot of challenges up in Queensland. One of the things about the Lions, in my time, and you also experienced this moving interstate, was that we just relied on each other so much and became family for each other. And I think that was one of the forces that really sort of elevated us, is that because we spend so much time together, because we're all from different parts of Australia and we were forced to in a way, that connection just grew stronger, and it reflected in our performances.
Yeah, obviously win 3's unbelievable, but over your journey, what things did you do as a player to sort of maximise, I suppose, your potential, but what sort of other traits you saw in guys? I know you played with so many superstars, and even guys who are superstars in their roles. What sort of some key sort of characteristics you sort of saw in guys, I suppose, maximise their potential?
I was really lucky. I mean, I came into a club, that had a lot of players that were so willing, like yourself, to help and develop younger players. Guys like Craig Lambert and Vossi, who do an enormous amount of work with you, to help you, because they knew that by doing that, not only would it enable you to develop, and I came in the same time as Simon Black, Shane O'Brien, Bo McDonald came in at the same time, and we had these mentors, and they knew that it was going to be able to obviously help them if we continued to improve, and at the same time we were growing our own game and contributing to something that was bigger than ourselves. And I think it's something that we're doing really well at Carlton Football Club at the moment. Is it's about trying to help others and trying to push others and bring others along. And my belief is that in doing that, you're already achieving. So it takes the focus off yourself, and it takes the focus off 24/7 performance.
Yeah.
While that's super important, as you know, and your preparation, when you're giving to others, you're already performing, you're already achieving. And then I reckon everything just flows from there, because you start to feel good about yourself and you've got energy.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. So as the other people so far on the podcast, like the 3 things you sort of train as an elite athlete is sort of your mind, your body, and your craft. And I think you're an expert in what you do, especially the craft element, developing young guys. But even in your own career, not the tallest guy going around, but there's a lot of short guys there, and have a one wood, but your craft element of your game and your skill set, I suppose, is what elevated you and I suppose got the most out of yourself. So what parts firstly, how important is it to work on your craft? Secondly, what's some areas of your game that you focused on being a smaller sort of guy in the team?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The fundamentals of the game are arguably the most important aspect. I just remember sitting in the coach's box at GWS in 2016. I probably told you this story, and the Dogs ended up beating us that night. If everyone remembers, it was probably one of the greatest AFL games of all time. They came from behind and they made the grand final, and I guess the rest is history. I was in the opposition coach's box, so the GWS one, and all night, Leon, it wasn't about the tactical elements of the game. It wasn't about the physical elements. It was about basic fundamentals, and I remember him all night yelling out fundamentals, and it was really, really, agitating and frustrating that we couldn't execute, and it just made me realise, from that particular instance, just the importance of being able to execute. And it's definitely something that I had to embrace when I came into the AFL. Obviously, I don't have the physical makeup or the power to take hold of games. But my thing was, can I do things consistently well, which is doing it time and time and time again. So for me, it was the number one thing was just about being one touch. Was about being clean. And I guess everyone talks about kicking and hands and all these things being the most important part, marking being the most important skill in a game of football. But without doubt, the most important fundamental skill is to be able to take the ball cleanly. Because then you can kick from there, then you can handball from there. You're going to be clean with your overhead marking. So for me, that was the most important thing, that I needed to be one of the cleanest players in the AFL at my size to be able to survive and make a career. And the big thing about it too is it gives you time. So, if you fumble, it brings more players in around the ball. If that person then fumbles, then more come in around the ball, and it becomes a really congested game. And I look at AFL games now, and you can just tell the work that guys are putting in to their game, and you're mates with a lot of guys across the competition. And one of the reasons why they're great players is because every time they get near the ball, they're just gonna take it cleanly. And people always ask me who the hardest player that I've ever played on, and for me it was always Gavin Wanganeen. And the reason for that is that when he was playing half back on you and you're a half forward, if you didn't take it cleanly, he was gonna. So you knew that if you didn't take your opportunity and you didn't execute, then the ball would be down the other end in an instant because he was that good. So that's why I consider him to have been the toughest player, and I can't reiterate it to young kids enough. If you want to survive in this game, and if you want to be a consistent player, you need to be consistently clean.
No, that's spot on, and you were very clean. You've probably still got the best touch of the club now. I think you probably do more touch than
I do. Well, anyway, I was a little bit disappointed I didn't get a ball magnet. It's coming. So I obviously didn't get enough of it, but I'll wait for that.
No, it's coming, mate. It's just got developed a bit after your time, unfortunately. But that should have been ahead of the show that happened back in the day. So with that touch stuff, so how much would you do, like when you were playing a week? Like how would you structure your week around sort of how much?
Yeah, every day I'd be doing it. I mean, Craig Lambert was, I don't know, Lambie'd kill me if I said this, but I don't know how many people besides Tigers and Brisbane fans would remember Lambie. But he was a fantastic footballer. Played over 200 games. Great human being. He was just his craft, and he didn't have leg speed. He did over 10, but he didn't have leg speed over longer distances. So he knew that his craft had to be elite, and I was fortunate to come into an environment, where he led that. With our younger players, with myself and Simon Black. We're really fortunate to have him. We used to do a ton of work, and some of it would be as simple as handballing into bins. We were always challenging each other. So there was always games because the competitive element of it means that you want to come back and do it and beat your mate. And basically, what that does is you push each other to another level, and you start to improve, and you also at the same time bringing others along with you. So I was probably fortunate early on. I had an appetite for it, but I had someone there, a few people. Simon Black was the other one. Was that he was the same age, but his attitude and his drive was unbelievable. So I could not. Do the same. Watching him, who's someone that you look up to, who's the same age as you. So I reckon you're a product of your environment, and I think that's one thing that obviously we're establishing at the moment, and the more that you can give to others and bring them along, especially with the craft, it's eventually they're gonna fall into it and start to really value it as well.
Yeah, I think you made a good point there about playing games and competitive and having fun, like doing it with people. Like you can still get purpose out of it and have a bit of fun doing it. Like even some of the touchdowns we do now, we make it sort of competitive, but it's also a bit of fun, and you're improving, but you actually do it, you're enjoying the process of it. I know, like, obviously you won the assistant coach of the year in 2021, which is a huge effort and very well deserved. I think what you do well, and I know you're very passionate about, is developing these young guys coming in. It's a huge area you focus on, and you love doing. You had the AFL Academy before that. You said that high performance. What's some sort of areas you focused on in developing these guys, especially if they were coming through the pathway and with the ball magnet sort of audience? We're sort of that 12 to sort of 18-year-old sort of young athlete that are really trying to still enjoy their footy, but work on their craft as they work their way up sort of their teenage years. What's some things you sort of focused?
Yeah, so as a coach, the biggest one for me is before you can tell a player anything, unless you've got a relationship with them, it's not going to have the impact, that you might want it to. And that's probably something that I started to develop at the end of my career at Brisbane. I probably did it all the way through my career, but I remember late in my career, I saw a psych, and my form was starting to drop off towards the end of my career, and basically she said to me, what are you doing now or what were you doing then that you're doing differently now? Can you put a finger on anything that might be happening that's different? Yeah. And basically what had happened was I'd become so absorbed with my own performance, because I was in survival mode, that I'd stopped valuing giving and putting time into others. Yeah. And for the year and a half more that I played, I actually got back to playing some decent enough footy. It wasn't great footy, but decent enough, because I just started to again value that, and that became my focus, because I knew that I had all the processes around the craft and how to write my schedule up and how to commit to what I needed to do to prepare. Yeah. But I'd just gone away from making it as much about me as about others. So I went back to that. My performances started to improve. Going to GWS really helped that, because we were such a young group at the time, just basically created off the back of all really young players. And it was just amazing, like to be there when Toby Green, Steve Cornelia, Josh Kelly, Lockie Whitfield, like the list goes on and on. A lot of household names, Phil Davis, Cal Ward. To be able to be part of that, and to push that even further. And then come into Carlton. So the biggest thing for me is that you need to show the players, obviously, that you care for them, but that you have time, I think is the number one thing. And it's always difficult because there are a lot of things that go into coaching now, and vision takes time, and looking at, structures and programs and all of these sorts of things. But I think it's something that we're doing really well at the moment, is that we allow our coaches the breathing space to put time into players. So, we've got people who take care of the schedule. We've got people who look out for other things, which basically frees our coaches up, to be able to spend time with players and be able to give back and have the energy to give to players. So that's the really important thing for me. If I'm talking to any young coaches or any coaches out there, the footy stuff, will come and you'll be able to educate the players, and you'll continue to improve in that. But it's about giving the players time, and I think that they really value that. In terms of young footballers, obviously we've talked about the technical aspect of the game, which is the fundamentals. The tactical aspect of the game, I'd say don't get too absorbed in them at the moment. You only need to know basically what to do when you haven't got the ball, what to do when you have got the ball, and what to do in the contest, which is a big part of it now, as you know. That contest, method and shape is becoming really big. Exactly. We're lucky that we got a number of players who excel in that area. But don't get too caught up in the structures, the kick-ins. Like I didn't even coach that when I was coaching in the pathways. And the only reason that I talk about the tactical aspect is because you need to be able to play within a system now. So you need to be able to play a role. Footy's become very system-based. Attributes now will get you a game, whereas in the past you probably just picked the best players when I was playing. It's very role-based now. Your small forwards down to your intercepting defenders. So that's really important that you get your mind not around the tactics so much, but around your role and basically what you can do to make the team better. Then there's the physical aspect of the game. You need to be able to run in some way now. So whether that's run long or run fast, if you got both of them, you're lucky. Obviously you got power. Which you're lucky. Wish I had power.
Good run there.
Yeah, but the physical aspect is really important. So you got to make sure that you continue to look after your body, because you need to be able to run to a certain level. Obviously, we can put players in that can complement certain players and all that sort of stuff, but you need to make sure that your running's at a level that's relatively strong. And the last one, which is a little bit more grey, which I know that you spend a lot of time on, is the mental aspect of the game. So the mindset, and the reason it's a bit grey is because there are so many areas to this. Like there's leadership, there's your attitude, there's your competitiveness. It's about balance. With your on and off field. So how you cut that up. But the thing that I'm seeing is that more and more players now are investing in it and getting really good results off the back of it. And I reckon that's the one that guys that I see probably need the most direction with, because you don't know what you don't know. So in terms of that, I would say to young players, just make sure you ask questions. Make sure you're inquisitive. I know that guys like yourself and George Stewart, Sam Walsh, they're just always asking questions, and you pick from that what you want. And obviously you get your trusted resources, but just that ability to be able to ask and get information, and then be able to process that information and take what you think is relevant, I think is becoming really important. I think it'll continue to become even greater, because at the end of the day, a lot of clubs are doing pretty similar things. So where does your competitive advantage come from?
No, I'd agree with all that. I think you touched on basically craft the body and the mind there, which is there's so many different ways you can train it and get better. But that mind element for me is it's not untapped, but it's like you said, there's so much ways you can go about it. And I think the most simplest way is just what you sort of say to yourself. The positive self-talk's a big one. And also I think just the ability to stay positive, stay optimistic, and keep showing up. I think it's really important, especially a young athlete. We also talked about before is the importance, especially the young sort of athlete coming through. And I know like we do a lot of sort of soccer and the side is a bit of fun, but I suppose that when you're young and developing, the importance to have fun while you play sport, and even have fun. I still have a lot of fun now, but do a lot of different other sports can really help your development, especially as a young sort of kid coming through. Would you agree with that?
Without doubt. I used to always encourage it. With players, I missed out on a couple while I was at the academy, which was Will Sutherland, who ended up playing cricket. He's doing really well. He would have just competitive. Would have been a great AFL key position player. We got Luke Jackson, which was good, but even with Luke, we encouraged him to play basketball right up until he was eligible to be drafted. Because one, it's we talk about the mental side. It's a good balance to have. You're establishing friendship groups. You're meeting people from all different walks of life and connecting with different people, which I think's, and I know you're big on it, is really, really important. And it just keeps your energy up. It keeps you fresh, and it gives you variety, which I think's a really, really good thing. Obviously, when you're drafted, you've got to direct your energy, towards one sport. But that element of being able to enjoy yourself and have fun, and we talk a lot about playing with freedom.
Yeah.
How do we play with freedom? It's just so important. And I'm big on soccer. I like watching the soccer. I like how certain things relate to our game. And at every opportunity, I'd probably rather have a kick of the soccer ball. And actually, you kicked the winner the other day, didn't you? So, did we get that on camera? We could chuck that in the So I just love it, and you can just tell the boys get up and about. And the thing about you guys is, you just compete, like, no matter what it is. So in terms of what you're training, there are things like pressing and getting up and closing time and space, and being able to transfer the ball on both sides. But the number one thing is that every time you do something that's a game, it just becomes competitive, and you're probably training, one of the most important aspects of all for any young player to have, to be considered for an AFL career. So being competitive, but at the same time being able to kick back and have your balance and have fun.
Yeah, really, really important. No, that's great, mate. I think anyone listening, especially as young athletes, would have got a lot from that. Just from a coaching element, I think you touched on it about that care element. I think that's what you do so well, is you care for the player and you build a relationship. And especially when there's young athletes coming through, it's not at the AFL level, but even through the junior ranks, the young kids that want to get better, and you can have a big impact on their life if you do it in the right way. So, mate, you're doing a great job in that. But secondly, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I know a lot of the young athletes out there would have learned a lot from that, and I see you as one of the best development coaches in the game. So I'm sure they would have got a lot from it. So
I appreciate that. Yeah, just if you're listening and watching, just continue to ask questions. I mean, I think the greatest development coaches we've got are still the players, because they're going through it. And for our young players, it's always talk to some of the senior guys about what they're going through, because they're living a similar experience. So I guess a lot of our work is guiding players how to have conversations, with the experts. So appreciate it.
thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate. Anytime.
That was good.